So you are afraid of something else. We all go a little mad sometimes. You don't know what death is. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Welcome to the madness.
We are the Mouths of Madness, your new favorite podcast for horror movie reviews. We're coming to you live tonight from the Mouths of Madness laboratory here at the Dungeon of Doom. This is our episode 7 on the 1985 Reanimator. My name is Kevin, and here at the Mouths of Madness laboratory, the members of Madness are all hard at work creating their own projects of madness. My project is turning a regular phone into a teleportation device where I will be transported into my favorite movies. All right, let me try it out here.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Well, that may not be the movie I wanted to be transferred into, so, we're still gonna work out the kinks on this one. All right, let me go around the laboratory and introduce you to the other members of Madness. First, we have Dan. Dan, what project are you working on?
My current project, Kevin, is transferring consciousness from point A to point B. My current subject, Mrs. Mack, and her cat Claude, I am going to be trying to transfer her consciousness into her cat Claude.
Oh.
Yes, don't ask me how. I was able to get her to volunteer.
Or the cat.
Well, the cat's included with the pack. And if anyone continues to question me, I'm going to start breaking pencils.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's not do that.
We don't want
Or
that.
pencils.
Oh, man. All right, well, next we have the mayor of Halloween Town, Bearclaw. What are you working on over there?
Me. Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, don't have like a ton to talk about, but me and some of the lab coats, we created like an AI toilet. You know, it's going to be great. It provide interesting facts, play our podcast, kind of acts like a member of the family with like funny quips, like a sitcom character, like, oh, did you guys have Taco Bell last night? That kind of stuff. But there are some bumps in the road, and it may have become slightly self-aware, which created a situation that was handled. And next up,
What do you mean by handled?
Yeah, what are you getting on about?
well, we smashed it to bits. And then we did the same thing to the AI toilet plunger as a lesson to it. They were in love. Do you guys think that God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created? Don't answer that. Listen, the members of the Test family that survived, I mean, they signed waivers, so like, legally we're cool. All right, it's a bit of a fuck up, all right? We all happy now, getting me to admit it? I don't want to talk about it anymore. Move on from me. Logan, what do you have?
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. We're just gonna move past that, everyone. Let's just forget what just happened. Anyway, my invention is pretty cool. I've been working on a voiceinator to change my voice, and some people have said that it's a little threatening or a little manipulative. But you know what? Let's try it out. Oh, let's see if this works. Oh, wow. Look at my voice now. I'm different. Ugh. Sorry, I had a frog in my throat. Well, let's go on. You know, that was enough. I think this has a little too many kinks.
Still working on the prototype, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, those projects all sound maddening. Get it? Maddening.
Boo.
Well, I know that there are a lot of other great horror movie podcasts out there, but what separates us from the other podcasts is that we're going to be bringing you the older versus younger generation perspective. Myself, Dan, and Bearclaw were all born in the 1980s, while my son Logan was born in the 2000s. So, this is the clash of the generations. Now, before we get into the episode, I want to plug some of our stuff and where to find us. First, we have a great Instagram page. Go follow us over at mouths.of.madness. Also, we have a great YouTube channel where we have a YouTube exclusive show called Straight Jacket Talk. There's a few episodes available right now over at Mouths of Madness. Finally, we have our email address at thepaddedroom@outlook.com. Email Bearclaw and let him know.
Guys, I need to know what's on those padded walls. I need to know those scribbles. You need to email me at thepaddedroom@outlook.com.
Yeah, he's looking for him every day.
Do it.
Now, before we get into our review, we want to do our new segment called Content Consumed, where we're going to let you know what we've been watching, what we've been listening to, what we've been reading, what we've been gaming, stuff like that. For me, I've been listening to this great podcast called We Thought This Was Good. They are gentlemen who are my age, Bearclaw's age, and Dan's
Gentlemen of
age.
a certain age.
Yeah. They review some of the movies when we were kids, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they did Little Giants, and they also did Hook, which is like one of my favorite childhood
great
movies.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
Great one.
So actually, after I listened to that episode, I went and I watched Hook with my daughter, Haley. You know, when she was real little, I'd put it on, but she really wasn't paying attention. Now that she's 10, it's like the perfect age. She was really into Hook, you know, with Rufio.
Bangarang.
I think no matter how old I get, I will still not like that movie as much as I used to.
Oh, you're saying you liked it as a kid?
Yeah, I liked it more as a kid.
Oh, man, you're like Peter Pan in that movie.
I know.
Grew up.
Oh, there you are, Pizza.
Oh, man. Also, I do want to give a shout out to Howitz's House of Horror. They were kind enough to mention us in their My Bloody Valentine review episode. So we definitely want to thank them. They are a great podcast. If you're looking for great horror content, please go and listen to them, subscribe to them on Instagram. They're definitely worth your time. All right, Dan, what do you have?
Recently, me and a buddy jumped back into the game Portal 2. We've been playing the co-op missions. We actually just completed the entire campaign and recently completed all the bonus levels. Such a fun game, like with the physics and just, I don't know, it takes a lot of like thinking and teamwork. Fun game if you want to grab a friend and check it out. It's fun.
Nice.
Now, is the cake a lie?
I'm sorry?
Is the cake a lie?
The cake a lie?
Portal?
I don't follow.
Editor's note, the cake is in fact a lie.
Oh, never mind.
Is that an inside joke?
I think it's a reference to the game that I'm just not, it's over my head.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
It's not this portal. It's another portal.
Editor's note 2, Kevin has absolutely no idea that he's actually correct about that.
I don't know.
You old people.
The laboratory fumes are getting to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay.
Is that all you have for content?
yeah.
Awesome. All right. How about you, Bearclaw?
So I've recently been watching Suitable Flesh, which is the newest movie with Heather Graham in it and one of the stars from today's movie in it, Barbara Crampton, and really fantastic H.P. Lovecraft movie, cosmic horror. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but there's, you know, it's got all the classic tropes that really make Lovecraftian movies great, and it's got a little bit of that B movie feel, but I mean, all the acting is A+, and there's a lot of like body swapping, so definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
You know, I love some body swapping, as you're going to know in this one.
All right. Well, how about you, Logan? What's your content consumed?
Well, you know, I was talking to the other members of Madness before this, and I was talking about how I just recently started playing Dead by Daylight. You know, it's a very good video game. You can either play as a survivor or a killer against, you know, this happens to be my case in point. I like to play as Michael Myers. Just love to have a lot of fun with that. I'm not great at video games, so me playing video games is probably like one of the most annoying things to other people. So probably should keep on charging away and try to, you know, do what I can to survive the night, you know.
Hey, listen, if you have fun, that's what matters, right?
That's right.
Yeah, well, Sure. Having fun.
Is Billy in that game? Can
Oh,
you go?
God. If Billy's in that game, I'm killing him straight away.
You can't get away from Billy, can you, Logan?
No, I cannot. I was also, I wanted to also point out, I just started reading Mankind's book. If you're a fan of wrestling, there's a great book. I'm really enjoying reading it. He talks about like all of his adventures from back in the... I wouldn't call them adventures, but I call them certain events that happened in his wrestling career.
Is it like an autobiography?
Yeah, but it's like, it's better than an autobiography because it really goes into detail about like all the certain things. Like there's one point where graphic thing here, he had his ear cut off, or not cut off, but ripped off, yeah. And he goes into detail about that. It's it might not sound like a great book, but it's very cool to see.
The things people will do for wrestling.
I know, he's a legend, so credit to Mick Foley.
Yeah, I've read it too. It's really a good book. It's Have a Nice Day, I believe is the title. And it's a good read. It's really compelling, and the way he describes things, like Logan said, is pretty descriptive at times.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, without any further ado, grab a beer, pull up a chair, hold on to your straitjacket tight, and let's dive into the madness. We watched Reanimator from 1985. It was directed by Stuart Gordon and is based on H.P. Lovecraft's novelette Herbert West's Reanimator. Now, the screenplay was written by Dennis Paoli, William J. Norris, and also Stuart Gordon. Now, it had a budget of $900,000. Do you guys know what it grossed at the box office?
I'm going to say $4 million.
Oh, let's see here. 1985. What was happening in 1985? I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to go 6 mil.
I'm going to say it didn't.
It didn't make anything?
No, like, I don't know, didn't make the box office. Like, wasn't it a release? Like, did it have a theatrical release?
So it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
There was a lot of problems with the MPAA, though, so they came very close to not having one.
And I would say about 750,000 then. I'm going low.
750. Well, I believe Dan would be the closest. It grossed just over $2 million at the box office.
Wow.
Not bad for the 80s.
Yeah, and so like you were saying, Bearclaw, what I had read on this movie is they actually did not submit this movie to the MPAA.
Oh, okay.
It was released unrated. That's what I had seen. I could be wrong.
Oh, I thought they had to do some stuff to get it like an R rating or something like that.
Yeah, according to the producer and the director on this, they were saying that the producer did not want to submit this movie to the MPAA because he knew it was going to be butchered
It was
to
just
be
gonna
able,
destroyed.
yeah, right, to be able to get it down to that R rating to be released.
I mean, this movie makes for an R-rated movie, There are a lot of stuff in it. There at 1985 that would have made people go, "Whoa!"
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the time, exactly like you said, it would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely would have been butchered.
This makes me
down.
go, whoa, now.
The minute
Forget
in,
about the 80s. This is shocking stuff even now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a cool thing. So like, grossing $2 million at the box office for
I
an
know.
unrated movie is really good, in my opinion, especially in 1985.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, that's a lot of money in 1985.
Right. Now, currently on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 94% critic score and an 82% audience score. So this is certified fresh.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
yeah.
This is one of those movies, too, that I would think that wouldn't be liked by critics.
That's why I was like, oh, I don't even know, because of all the hurdles it had to go through just to get into theaters, and like it's low budget and just it's like a cult following film. I figured it didn't really make a lot of money initially and until later.
Yeah, so what I had also read is because it was unrated and because they couldn't really go, to huge number of theaters with this, they really depended on some of the critics to really give this movie a boost. Roger Ebert, who's been known
No way.
to shit on horror movies. He
Not a friend of horror.
No, he loved this movie, and he wrote
Wow.
a great article about it.
You know, a lot of people who aren't familiar with what movies have come to in 1986 will probably be a little appalled when you describe Reanimator as a good old time at the movies, but it has a good heart, and it is funny and satirical.
I liked it a lot.
And that's one of the things that him and a bunch of other critics really helped this movie succeed to the points it did. You know, and then Dan, to your point too, later on when VHS tapes became big and video stores became big, this had a resurgence. So it's a really kind of a cool story for this movie. Now, this was Bearclaw's pick for our episode. So Bearclaw, why did you choose Reanimator?
So, just to give the audience a little bit of a background, I'm a big cosmic horror fan, big H.P. Lovecraft fan, read a lot of his stories, not so much a fan of his personal philosophies and notorious racism, but just more about some of his writings and some of the concepts and the cosmic horror kind of genre. So a lot of my selections I think you're going to find over time are going to kind of lean towards that cosmic horror, that slow crawling madness that kind of takes us over. And, you know, one of the reasons that I picked this film is, in my mind, when I think about myself as a kid going into the video store and when my mom was off picking whatever movies her and my father were going to watch, and I was let to go and pick what I was going to watch, it was always part of the section that it was in the VHS section where, you know, I couldn't pick any movies from. And, you know, that was kind of like some of my introduction to horror, was like the cover to like this movie, Hellraiser, Chucky, you know, those iconic covers. And this was one of them. And that's why I'm bringing this to the table here for us to discuss and take a look at, because in my mind it's iconic horror. The image of Herbert West with the luminescent needle in his hand is very iconic to me. So I think we're gonna have a good time discussing it. I'm excited to hear what your guys' take on it is.
Bearclaw, you took me down a trip of memory lane there.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that suffers nowadays is not being able to go into a video store and seeing those covers and some of those titles and picking up the box and turning it around and, you know, and really kind of immersing yourself in the idea, like, this could be the horror movie, you know?
Oh yeah, I still got my Blockbuster card in my wallet.
Oh man. Let's go. Oh no.
Back in the day, Bearclaw and I used to peruse the Blockbuster. And there was always a movie guy there who just always, you could ask him on any particular movie, he could give you the full synopsis of it. It was incredible. Like, I just wonder where those people are now that they don't have Blockbusters anymore.
Like the comic book guy from The Simpsons.
Yeah, he was like, that's exactly what he was like.
Our comments section? Question mark.
Hey, listen, if you're out there, guy from Blockbuster, comment down below.
Why don't you go ahead and email me at thepaddedroom@outlook.com. I want to hear what your thoughts are on this one.
We could use some movie suggestions.
We could also use some movie suggestions.
We did not learn his name.
Well, you know, I want to start this open discussion with, what are our overall thoughts on this movie? Like, what were your impressions? Is this your first watch? What do you guys got?
So I'll kick it off just because I have a deep love of this movie, and I'll start by saying a bunch of nice things. And I've been sitting on the edge of my seat to what you guys think about this, but for me, this movie, it has all of the elements that I love, and it's close. It's not exact, but it's very close to the story it's based off of from H.P. Lovecraft, which is Herbert West, Reanimator. Very interesting read. Highly recommended. If you liked the story of this movie, I definitely recommend reading that. But, you know, with this, you've kind of got this scientific discovery and this Frankenstein kind of situation. And the cool part about this is you slowly watch as Herbert West kind of corrupts the people around him. They all start as like really good, upstanding individuals for the most part.
Now he's turning us into monsters.
The exception of Dr. Hill. I don't think he's ever good or upstanding. The secret creeper. But like he kind of corrupts those around him. Kind of almost reminds me of like a real life like Elizabeth Holmes from that Theros company, where like she corrupted, she got all these people like to believe in this thing, but he actually can deliver on his promise, unlike her. And that's what I like about this movie is that slow kind of creeping madness. It starts kind of like, oh, okay, well, this isn't so bad. bad. They bring the cat to life. That's kind of, and then
Right.
and then it just gets worse and worse, and the madness keeps going, and it turns up to an 11, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this was my first watch ever of this movie. And
I'm so jealous.
yeah, I mean, I had heard of it for a long time, right? You know, the horror community, this is a beloved movie with body horror. And I'll even kind of say this movie has a very zombie-esque quality to it. You know, I know you had made the Frankenstein reference, but I thought this movie kind of did a zombie thing in a cool way. You know, like a lot of times zombie movies are boring and, you know, just like
slow creeping,
slow
you
pace.
know.
And to your point, when they turn the lever up, you know, in creating this madness situation, by the end of the movie, it's just complete chaos. Which I love, you know. It was cool. And I love all the visuals, you know, the gore, the Reanimator serum itself is really cool, you know, and it was very visually appealing.
Did you guys know what that was?
It was glow sticks.
It was luminol. Yeah, the same stuff they do is in glow sticks. They also use it in crime scenes to detect oxidizing agents, aka blood.
Oh,
so that's kind of cool. I thought that was a neat thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, when it's on screen, it's like your eyes are drawn to it.
I know, it's
Tells
so
it pops.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, if that was, imagine if it was just like blue or something. Like it wouldn't have been the same.
No. Yeah, I think that's a very important, you know, prop in the movie. You know, it sets it apart, even like you said, to the point of the cover art of the movie too. It has that same green glow that just sticks out to you. So I thought it was cool. I mean, I thought this was just a fun movie overall.
Yeah.
You know, to me, this does that over the top gore the right way. It has that campy feel, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. It knows what it's doing, and it has a complete vision and heads there. It has that like Evil Dead kind of feel too to it, which
Definitely.
I love. Also, you know, and it's scary. It has scary scenes in it. It's not like it's all just laughs and stuff like that. There's some terrifying moment. I love the scene where Dan is sleeping in bed and then he hears the cat shriek and it like wakes him up. Think about how terrifying that would be, that your dead cat, all of a sudden you're hearing a shrieking and it wakes you up in the middle of the night. I thought that was kind of a cool scene in that aspect. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree a lot with what you guys have said already. I would throw in that when I first watched this movie, I got like the 1950s black and white horror movie vibes. Like it kind of feels old, but at the same time new, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like it has a classic vibe to it, if that makes sense. And I think it's because a lot of those movies also, I think, borrowed from H.P. Lovecraft. I think of like the original Fly movie is one that I think of that this reminds me of. I mean, I love the campiness of it. And to your point with the Evil Dead, I feel like this movie does special effects better than Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And the effects hold up a lot better now than the Evil Dead one. Like the Evil Dead, it's so low budget.
Yeah.
That like it almost is like they had to like not take it seriously, where this feels like they knew what they were doing effects wise and they might have had a bigger budget, and so it comes across as more effective.
Yeah.
I like the descent into the madness. Like that third act, or just things go balls to the wall, is great. I think all the characters are funny, and Jeffrey Combs he steals every scene he's in.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just the best.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a cool thing too, because I think the acting in this movie was really good versus some of the more campier horror movies that you get.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, to your point, where they're reading off of cards.
Oh, hi, Sally. How are you?
What does that mean?
Yeah, like the context is campy, but the actors take it seriously.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. When he's cracking that pencil, he's got a very serious look on his face. They're all just really selling it. I mean, you believe that Jeffrey Combs is Herbert West. I mean, is that guy.
You believe Herbert West or Jeffrey Combs is really fighting a cat off of his back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that scene was awesome, though, of them trying to find the cat.
Yeah,
That scene is
I love
awesome.
that scene. I saw this documentary where they were talking about that scene specifically with the cat, and Jeffrey Combs, he was talked about how legitimately there wasn't a cat or a prop in like 99% of that scene. You only see the cat for a small amount, but because of the lighting, the light that's swinging and the camera work, it's making you feel like, to your point, Logan, like, where's the cat at? You know,
Yeah.
any
Chasing around the cat.
Yeah.
They did good.
Yeah, it's done really well. What about you, Logan? What did you think of this movie?
Well, I think just overall, I think like you said, visually it just is so appealing. I was like, oh my god, this is so astoundingly pleasing, because I'm like, every character looks, feels, is basically their character, but also like the way they act and everything is just perfectly like how you would act in this kind of scenario. But I like how like everything looks, every like little like emotion or sign of struggle is actually like, it feels real. It feels like you are having this kind of reaction yourself while you're watching it happen. So it's just very like, it's kind of meta in a way. Like, cause I was like freaking out at the scene where Dr. Hill was, you know, assaulting the girl there, Megan, and I was just like, oh my god, like I was just like, oh Jesus,
That's
like
like the
it's
most
terrible.
freak out moment. Like
Yeah.
that's like the peak of depravity.
Yeah, it's just, it was so disturbing, but like other than that, like think just like overall, it's just such a fun, enjoyable movie. It's just, I love the main character, because it's just, his lines, he doesn't say much, but when he does talk, it has got to be the funniest thing, because he is like true to Herbert West. Like he is Herbert West.
I think
like,
his presence takes over the screen
Oh,
anytime
yeah.
he's on it.
and you can tell like he's a douche, but like he's a funny douche.
Well, I really like the scenes where it's him and Dr. Hill.
Yeah. Like when he's introduced to Dr. Hill, I thought that was really good, because he's like, yeah, your work is plagiarized. You're a crook.
I know your work, Dr. Hill, though derivative of Dr. Gruber's research in the early 70s. So derivative, in fact, that in Europe it's considered plagiarized.
It's like, okay, right off the bat.
Just goes right after him.
Yeah, and I love it, because Dr. Hill, you know, he's a perv, so he deserves it.
Yeah, and I like when Jeffrey Combs is like calmer than he should be in the situation, like when that muscle reanimated corpse is killing the dean, and Dan, the kind of good guy in the whole situation. Whether he stays that way is another question, but like the good guy is like, oh, what am I gonna do? And Herbert West is just standing behind him, and he goes, matter of factly, Dan, look out, with the bone saw, just like rails it
Right.
through.
Yeah, it's so good.
Such a cool effect.
You know who that corpse was? The body double of a very infamous person.
Yeah, I saw that. It was Terminator, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And he was also in the movie Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold, where Arnold looked at him and he was like, oh, that's my twin. And then Danny DeVito showed up and he's like, what the hell? This
Oh, that's interesting. So
Yeah.
the body double is in Reanimator.
Yeah.
That's
And you know what I also found cool about that guy was actually the makeup on his body.
Yeah.
Because they did a lot of, his veins. They said they did a
Yeah.
thing with his veins, which is cool. But one of the things that I noticed that was really cool was they did a lot of research at morgues for this movie. And they used a lot of forensic pathology books to present a corpse and look how the blood settles. One of the things that I thought was cool was with the muscle guy, you can see his back is all red and purple and like bruised.
Yeah.
There's the pooling of the blood.
That's what happens with the pooling of the blood
Yeah.
with a dead body, and so it's like it's one of those things where it's just like that's what made this movie so creepy, was like the morgue and like
They did their
Their
research.
attention to detail.
yeah,
So
I
they-
made it look realistic and like whoa.
They went to an actual morgue and
Yeah,
they
I
like
heard that.
looked at bodies like to see what it actually looks at. Like the main actors did as well, and like they try to get it precisely right. Everything they did. So when Dr. Hill was doing his presentation about about the body, or you know, like ripping out the head.
Like peeling back an ear of corn.
Yeah, like he
said something.
he
to
was-
the
It was like an orange.
They
yeah,
actually-
orange. That's what it was.
They actually learned how to do that. Like they had it, but it's so that's really cool. But like they also like the body doubles and all the other stuff that they had to do for like different like effects is just so cool. Like the effects are really good.
Yeah, the practical effects are so good in this, and it makes me want this in today's horror so bad,
Just get rid of all that CGI bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get that there's a place for CGI. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But I think today, now we're getting into like my old man rant, but
Back when I was.
I know. I just think today's day and age uses it too much as a crutch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is just a perfect example of some simple gags that really are so effective if you do them correctly.
What about like the doctor's eyeballs? Like in the opening scene.
Yeah.
Like if that doesn't set the tone for the movie, I don't know what
That was a minute in, and we were already getting that.
You know, it's kind of a cool little 7 degree of separation here. One of the guys who worked on that effects is John Carl Buechler. He also did the effects in Halloween 4 and Halloween 6.
Oh, here we go.
I know, 2 of my favorites.
Old man ran.
Probably wears crotchless panties and barks like a dog.
It kind of smells in here. You smell it?
What is it?
You don't smell it?
No.
It smells like fresh.
Oh,
Fresh
fennel.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like you were saying, too, though, with Herbert West, right? And the way that Jeffrey Combs plays him, he plays him like a doctor, where he's very medical, and everything he says is kind of cold and callous because it's free of emotion. He has no emotion on the subject.
Yeah, and like that's one of the things I love about this movie, and I love about the original story too, is it kind of struggles with that thing of like, if you think about what a doctor fundamentally is, they're trying to fight off death. Is Herbert West a hero or a villain in this movie? If you think about it, I mean, if you could harness the power of fighting off death. Now he makes some very villain choices.
That's such a great point in this movie, because when I was watching it, I liked Herbert West because of how he was portraying, but at the same time, I'm like, wait a minute, he's the villain in this story.
He didn't have to bring back Dr. Hill.
Yeah.
Well, so that's my other question, though. Dr. Hill, he is also the
He
villain,
just had
right?
to be like worse than Herbert West. They just had to make him like a little worse than Herbert West.
Who is the true villain in this? Are there 2 villains?
The cat.
I kind of think there's 2 villains, and how did that cat die originally?
Right. And Dr. West also kills Dr. Hill.
Yeah.
I mean,
'cause he was
come
like,
on.
And I mean, I don't know if you're in that, if he's going to steal his life's work. And
I get that, but he's...
But then, there's more reasonable reactions than taking a shovel to the back of somebody's head. So
he also killed the dean of...
Oh yeah,
that's true.
Well, the dean technically interrupted an important experiment, according to Hill.
I mean,
then he brought him back.
He brought him back.
And then Dr. Hill lobotomized him.
Yeah. This laser lobotomy.
Hippocratic oath, right? Do no harm. Great doctors.
Like you said, this is about defeating death. That's really what it is. What I like too, though, is the character of Dan, right? He's really our kind of character as the audience. We're going through this movie really as Dan is going through this,
Exactly. And it's the story. If you read the story, it's actually written through Dan's eyes. Well, I don't recall what the character's name was, but it's all about somebody who's observing Herbert West, the medical student who's roommates with him. So that's how the story is kind of written. So I think it's really cool how they take that, and you see he goes from like the top student at Miskatonic University in Arkham, Massachusetts, both callbacks to H.P. Lovecraft. And he's like the top medical student. He's going out with the dean's daughter. They're gonna, get married and have a wonderful, life ahead of them. And then he sees Herbert West come in, this insidious person. But Herbert West is trying to fight death, and so the doctor side of him, the side of Dan's doctor side, that's how Herbert catches him.
Right,
is like, listen, we can defeat death, and then you start seeing Dan going, I saw the cat, maybe we can.
Right.
And that's the madness.
He becomes a believer.
Yes,
the madness,
and I think there's an important scene too at the beginning where Dan is trying to revive a patient.
Yes,
and he can't do it,
and he won't give up,
and he's frustrated, and he's emotionally attached.
Cain, your optimism is touching, but a waste of time. A good doctor knows when to stop.
Dr. Harrod,
Take her. and take her to the morgue.
And that lets the audience know that, like, you know, he would be kind of in on if there was a way to bring people back from the dead.
We can defeat death. You know, but like, is that it? And like, okay, but then, you know, he does chop somebody's head off with a shovel. So, you know, balances, you know.
I mean, there's obviously bright spots in this movie. And I think there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of misses that I have with this kind of movie. Like, I don't like how there's not really a person to root for, but that's life in itself. Like, no one's really rooting for when you're basically fighting death itself. But like the way they go about everything feels more real than their emotions towards this kind of thing. Herbert West obviously will do whatever it takes to avoid death, but he's also the kind of person that's like, hey, let me kill somebody. So he doesn't really have a moral compass.
Yeah, he's kind of amoral.
You're
like,
right.
He thinks that he's better than everyone else. He has a god complex that thinks he can revive everyone, thinks that he's above everyone, so he can just do it himself. Not because of anything that he wants. Actually, you know what? It might just be personal glory. He doesn't want to save anyone. He just wants the accomplishment of being kind of like a hero. In its sense.
Yeah, that might be part of it. He strikes me as kind of like the ends always justify the means sort of guy.
Yeah.
Like,
he doesn't care what it takes. He'll do whatever to get to where he is.
Yeah. No matter what, you know, there's no breaks. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. And I mean, it kind of makes me want to know, like, well, what was he doing before this? How did he get to Sweden? Like, it really makes me fascinated in what drove that character.
I like that, though. Like, I think one of the cool parts is the beginning scene right away with Dr. Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber.
Did
he fall at a Nakatomi Tower?
I know. I was like, wait a minute, this name sounds familiar. Oh, Die Hard. But with that opening scene, right, it kind of just lets you know right away what type of movie we're in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and gets you right there, heart pumping. And I like how we're almost dropped in on this idea. You know, to your point, Logan, I mean, it seems like there is nobody to root for, but in a way, I felt myself rooting for Dr. West because, like, I wanted to see what this was capable of. Like, I wanted to see what this serum could do, and I wanted him to see if he could perfect it in a way.
Well, yeah, I was rooting for him too, but then he did it to Dr. Hill, and I'm like, okay, you're done for. You're way too into this. You literally killed this dude.
That was the moment of no return for you?
Yeah, because he was just like, okay, let me decapitate this dude, and then let me just give him life. Like, why would you do that?
I felt that too, but then afterwards, when Dr. Hill sexually assaulting Megan, I was like, okay, that would seem justified.
Yeah, you know, maybe his head did deserve to come up with a shovel.
To Logan's point, going back to the whole God complex thing, and to tie in with H.P. Lovecraft and what you were saying before about where was he doing, like before I thought he was in Switzerland.
Yeah, Switzerland.
But like, is he a cosmic being?
Yeah.
Was Dr. Hans Gruber a cosmic being? Like, what are his motivations? We don't know because he's Lovecraftian. It's like the monsters are cosmically bigger in concept than we could our minds itself could fathom. And that's the madness element in Lovecraft.
To your point too, they don't really specify much on the Reanimator serum itself.
Yeah,
you know, it's kind of just
I don't want them to.
Right. Is a key ingredient some like tentacle or something? Like,
I don't want them to, because I feel like this movie, the one good thing they didn't have was exposition. I don't need exposition in this kind of movie because we already know what's happening. We got in a minute in and we already saw what happened to Gruber.
Right. Show don't tell. This movie does it perfectly.
Yes. And I love the first line that the other doctor says to him was, "You killed him," and then he goes, "No, I gave him life." Yeah. Like that's this movie. You don't need to watch a 30-minute explanation about, oh, why is he doing this? What's the experiments on? What's all this? All you need to see is just how he acts and what he does in his like free time.
Exactly.
You're
Unlike
like, it's a show, not tell movie. That's
show not
perfect.
tell. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, like you take a look at like Candyman, which we saw. Like the first Candyman had like a solid 45 minutes of like exposition and like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. In this movie, you know, the first scene is the nurse and the cops walking down the hallway and somebody screaming out of their mind, and you know, and you see this whole scene. Of course, he's dead. The dosage was too large.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I think that's one of the coolest openings, and you know, from there it kind of calms down a little bit. But then it kind of starts ramping up. The cat incident, okay. Then we start going up. All of a sudden, you know, we're okay. Now Dan's in the morgue. Now we're gonna try this out on a dead body. All know the Dean's dead. I mean, things keep ramping up, and it seems like the people are losing control. Next thing you know, you're getting wrapped up in some dude's intestines.
I think though that makes sense too for this movie, that things get out of control, because
Yeah.
it would be kind of counterproductive if all of a sudden, like, everything works perfectly.
He solved it, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, good news, guys! Yeah, we cured death. So later, everybody."
Right. What I had heard too, and I didn't read the H.P. Lovecraft novelette.
Oh, that really goes off the rails at the end.
But so what I had heard too is they kind of went through him little by little experimenting,
Yeah.
and figuring things out. And I think what this movie does good is their take on that is they kind of ramp it up in this movie for you. So it's like an hour and 20 minutes of just
Yeah.
pure balls to the wall, let's go, versus like trying things out little by little. This is like, nope, we're going down in the morgue and we're
gonna do it, and we're
Yep.
gonna try it. And the book is very much like that. In the book, there's a big focus on, and this is maybe why he reanimated Dr. Hill. In the book, there's a big focus on freshness of the body.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
in the book. So I mean, and in this, they kind of say, oh, we got to have a fresh, because it's like in the book, he was like, we have to get it as soon as they're fresh, because that's how they get it. And he eventually, like Herbert West, crosses the line and actually kills somebody to try and reanimate them. But yeah, I mean that whole freshness of the deceased is like a very big theme. So, and just completely, even in the book, Dr. Herbert West is completely amoral as well, and it's just, is he a hero? Is he a villain? He's a questionable. I mean, he's a questionable character.
He's a
but
tweener.
He's awesome, and another piece of my note that I keep going by is Dr. Hill. He's such a villain, a plagiarist. He's the creepster on Barbara Crampton's character. I liked his thing of with the father. When the father, who he knew was reanimated, was like, we have to do some exploratory surgery.
Yeah.
Is there any
Oh,
two more
yeah.
terrifying words than exploratory surgery? Like, you don't know what you're doing, but you're going to be cutting in.
It's kind of weird that like he had a padded room off of his office.
Yeah, probably for Barbara. That's
Yeah.
for the character there. Yeah.
Yeah, Megan.
Yeah, we
Megan,
never got an
yeah.
answer to that. Could have used a little exposition. Hey, why do you have a padded room in your office? No.
Quick question. It's handy right now, but why was that there? That was built there.
He knew this would happen.
You know what I want to ask you guys on this, and I know there were other movies after Reanimator. Would this be a pretty good candidate for a remake in today's horror world? What do you think?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree. I don't think they'd put the love into it that was initially put into the movie if they remade it today.
Here's what I'm gonna say on this, and I don't want to dive too deep into this madness because I think eventually we might cover the Terrifier movies. And this kind of ties into what I think about those movies a little bit. But my thing with this movie is the over-the-top gore. I think they do it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they know what they're doing. They know their vision, right? And I don't know if today's audience would really appreciate this kind of level of where they're going. And I only say that because in movies that we've seen, like the Terrifier movies, like some of the new like Evil Dead stuff, they take gore and they go a little bit above and beyond. And I know like in some movies it's warranted and scary and justified. But I think a lot of what they do now is for shock value. And I've heard this explained with Reanimator. Reanimator is not a shock movie. It's a splatter movie. And there's a difference. There's an art to a splatter movie. And a shock movie, There's no real art value to
Oh
it.
yeah, it's a fine line too. But
Yes.
this is an example of the line. You
Yes, yeah. So I don't know where that audience would fall with something like this, because do you take this and you go the more serious route, to appeal to today's audience,
I think it would work in today's audience, though, because the people obviously name it a cult classic. They love this kind of movie. So why wouldn't you try to, I'm not a big fan of remakes, but when done right, it's done right. Like horror movies are fickle, People always have problems with remakes, and there's always like issues that are kind of natural that kind of can't be repeated in a sense, but when done right, like I think the Reanimator is a perfect movie where you can do a whole new cast, and they can do kind of what the book was trying to do. Maybe put it in kind of a first person kind of view.
Yeah, and just to give you guys how crazy the book gets, it ends up with like all of the reanimated corpses being led by Herbert West, who has a lizard head in a bowl. And
that checks out for
Lovecraft. World War. It's like they become World War I doctors, and because keep in mind it was written in in that time period, and there's a lizard head gets put in somewhere, like a reanimated lizard head, and like he leads the cast of the dead like into hell or something like that. Like it gets pretty wild. It turns up to an 11 too.
You know what though? There has been some cosmic movies recently that seem to have a pretty good following on streaming services.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe if they go more with the cosmic route, if that would work.
And also, fun fact, there's 2 other movies in this series. There's Bride of the Reanimator, and then there's, I forget what the third one was called. It was like Reanimator Returns or something like that, all starring Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, now I really want to see the other ones.
I know. I'm like amped. I'm a little bit afraid that this is going to be a case of where the first one's the best one, but we'll see. I mean, the same director and stuff, so
yeah,
I don't know. I haven't even seen those.
Yeah, I think it's like, again, this is such a niche movie, and it's so much fun. Again, like, I don't know if a remake necessarily would do it justice, but to your points, I don't know. Why not try? I guess.
I don't know.
I think
if
they
you
would
could capture the Jeffrey Combs magic.
Yeah,
that would be
also
hard.
don't think they'd capture the humor. Like, I don't think they would capture that. I don't think they would hit that tone right. They would try and make it like grittier or darker, and the movie would be worse for it.
Yeah, the only thing that made me kind of optimistic for horror's future in a way, and I'm not trying to shit on new horror because I do like a lot, like especially some of the elevated horror that's out there. But I think what's so great about horror, and one of the reasons why we have a podcast on it, there's so many subgenres of horror, It doesn't all have to be one thing. And to me, this is a great example of a great horror movie that isn't like other things that you've seen.
Oh yeah, it's not a slasher movie. It's not like a
Demon
you said
movie.
like a shock movie. It's not a jump scare movie. I mean, there's jump scares in it, but like it's not a creepy doll movie or some of those other like weird haunting movies. It's kind of its own thing. And I think Suitable Flesh, I hope it did really well because that was a good movie. I think that you're gonna start seeing some higher quality cosmic horror movies, and also there's that Nick Cage movie, Color Out of Space.
Yeah,
I mean, we're getting some A-list here that's starting to creep into the cosmic horror genre.
Well, to your point, what I'm really optimistic about is it seems like whatever horror movie kind of comes out, there's an audience for it. You know what I mean? And even, so there's like the elevated ones are doing really good. I know they went back and did the Scream, some of that, and brought a new audience, but those did really good at the box office. Thanksgiving, which is kind of a throwback to some of these more campier slasher movies from the 80s and stuff like that. That did pretty well at the box office.
Yeah.
So that's really what I'm optimistic about, because let's start getting into some more of these other kind of subgenres and put them on the box office. One of the big things is we haven't seen a Freddy or Jason movie
in a while.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's a good thing though. We've already seen, it's a difference though, because like this movie Reanimator, really they haven't done a remake. They haven't done they've only done 2 sequels besides the original. Well, like Freddy vs. Jason has like thousands of entries. They still got like different things for it. It's hard to do a remake and it's hard to do it right.
Platinum Dunes destroyed Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
Oh
But,
my
you know, and not to go down that path too much, but I think in fairness, those franchises have been dead long enough where I think you could revive them and it would make sense because there's a new audience out there that to me seems hungry for horror.
You know what I think the missing ingredient is?
What's that?
And here's my theory. Gather around, Cubs. This is Bearclaw, Papa Bearclaw's theory on horror. They need to put the fun back in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
They need to put it a little bit, not too much, like vanilla in a good baking product. Not too much. But you need to put a little bit more fun into things, like the gritty reboot of Batman and all that other kind of stuff. Everybody's like, oh, it's got to be realistic. No, it doesn't.
Right.
It's got to have fun. There's got to be an element of fun to the movies, and I think that's where a lot of it's missing. So that would be my take. I think if you bring it back, you got to, or when it comes back. To be successful, I think it'll have a little element of fun to it. I think
they have the potential. There's no limit to the fun that they can do, but somehow, some way, they always love to just strangle you with it's all just very it's all very fake. You can feel the fake. It's not fun. It's just it's exposition after exposition, some kind of fun with a killer or whatever. And then they just completely just go, yeah, you know what? We're just done with this. We're just going to make it as drawn out as possible.
Yeah. And I mean, let us know what you think. What does horror need today? I want to read your thoughts on it. Why don't you go ahead and email me at thepaddedroom@outlook.com and tell me all about what we need to do to bring back some fun to horror. What are some remakes that you think would do well with today's audience and would appeal to Logan and his crew?
Yeah, we need some Invisible Man and a new remake of that one.
They did. Blumhouse did one, I think.
No.
Not that one.
Not that one. Not that one. Old classic horror. I do like talking about remakes. They are making a Wolfman remake.
Yeah.
Another one?
Yeah.
They
Well,
did
the one
one with
with,
Benicio del Toro
yeah,
10 years ago.
Yeah, they're doing a new one with, I think it's Daniel Abbott or something, but it should be good. I've seen a lot of good things about it, so
Nice.
we got some good things coming to horror.
You kind of make me want to go back and watch the early 90s Frankenstein with Robert De Niro now.
Yeah, that was good. I like that. Bram Stoker. Those were classics that came out in the 90s that I love those movies. Those were introductions to the concepts. But I mean, speaking of movies, I was shocked when I was looking at some of the actors in this. I was shocked by Barbara Crampton. I mean, she has been Jeffrey Combs also. He did a lot of stuff. He's in a bunch of Star Trek episodes, like Next Generation and stuff like that. He's still playing in movies. He's still playing in horror movies. There was this weird kind of movie that came out from a YouTuber called Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls. It's kind of like a comedy horror. They went a little bit too far with the fun in that movie, if you ask me. But
there's a line.
But there's a line. Yeah, exactly. And that, talk about exposition. But Jeffrey Combs was a standout in that movie as the necromancer. But I mean, Barbara Crampton, I mean, she has been in, so much science fiction. And even in, like I said, the most recent, that Suitable Flesh movie, look her up. I mean, she has done a ton of the sci-fi stuff.
She seems like a pretty big horror icon that isn't really talked about as much.
Yeah.
And specifically in this Reanimator movie, her scream is so freaking good.
Yeah, and she's a great actress too. One movie that she's also in with Jeffrey Combs is From Beyond.
Oh yeah,
which that's gonna, I'm saving that in my back pocket for when we really want to get weird. That's some far out cosmic horror. But
now, before we get into our hook, line, and stinker, I do want to end our open discussion with talking about the ending scene, because to me it was just pure chaos, and I love every second of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What were you guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, that's just the pinnacle, right? It's like all of a sudden there's this disembodied head that's being carried around, and it's lobotomized all the other corpses so that it can control their human will, and like everything is just coming, sideways, and there's a little bit of a questionable scene with the head trying to do some things to poor Barbara Crampton, but fortunately that didn't go to its logical conclusion, and because her father finally clicked, I guess, something.
So yeah, I want to ask about that. So the father started listening to Megan.
Yeah, like I mean, and
it was like his instincts took over.
Yeah, like even though he had been lobotomized and brought back from the dead, there's still that fatherly love within his.
Yeah, but he still ripped
corpse.
off her clothes and allowed for it to happen for long enough. Like he was just like, "Oh, let me go along with this." And even then, like when they were having the dinner, he was obviously hitting on her, and he was just like, "Oh, whatever, who cares?" Like he didn't.
Dr. Hill was definitely a creeper.
Well, her father came through in the end, and I love the scene too where he crushes Dr. Hill's head.
Yeah,
he throws it.
He takes it and starts headbutting it, and then crushes it.
And he throws it against the wall. The security guard was like, "Whoop, I'm out of here."
I love that security guard.
And then you see Herbert West do the most heroic thing probably in the whole movie, where he's like, overdose time or something like that, and he sticks the 2 plungers into the surgeon's body.
I know there's a sequel to this, but like what happens to Herbert?
Yeah, because he just gets wrapped up in that guy's intestines at the end there.
That was some alien type shit. Like, I did not like that.
I mean, it's not Lovecraftian if there isn't some kind of like
tentacle.
tentacle reference.
I knew it was gonna happen sooner or later. I just thought it wouldn't be like that.
I loved all like the smoke going off and just it was an eerie. It really was like a cool, almost zombie effect. Full on like ripping people apart,
and like all the corpses with like their burns and like disfigurements and like come back to life. Like it became a little bit of a zombie movie, but like, and they're all naked too. That makes it, especially when you're in a morgue setting, that makes it very visceral. Like that makes it very like they're all naked. And like,
yeah. What did you think about the very ending too, where Megan dies and then
Dan brings her back? I mean, you gotta have that, right? You gotta have the madness finally taking hold on everybody.
I kind of knew it was gonna happen once Herbert threw the satchel or whatever it was, like the bag of things, like with the serum in it. Because I was like, okay, now I'm like thinking Herbert's out of the way. How are we gonna end this thing? And I was like, okay, here's how it's going to go. Megan's going to get hurt somehow. She's going to die. And just like the opening scene where Dan was reviving that patient, he'll do whatever it takes to just bring that person back.
It was a great callback to that opening
and I think it's perfect because Dan is very much like West. They're very obsessed with reviving people in their own different ways. They have a different way. They have a different thinking with that sort of thing. But then Wes starts corrupting Dan over time because then he starts seeing the same things that Wes sees. And he's like, this is going to help people, but it's not. And obviously, like we know the entire thing at the end was kind of like left to thought, but well, we know.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? It's kind of like and spoiler alerts for Pet Sematary, but it's like when like when he goes and he after all of that happens, he goes and buries his wife in the pet cemetery. It's like that. I love that crunchiness at the end of the movie where it's like the madness has saturated.
Yeah, this was very much like Pet Sematary.
They talked about Stephen King being highly influenced by this story, and you can see it in Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're on to our favorite segment: hook, line, and stinker. All right, so for my hook, now there's kind of a gray area here.
Yeah, this gets very confusing because something can die many times in this, as the cat showed us.
Right, but I'm gonna go with
the cat.
I'm gonna go with Herbert West doing the shovel to the head to Dr. Hill, but it's more specifically when he separates his head out on the ground. I thought that was a great kill in the moment. Obviously, his head comes back and everything. But my favorite line is at the beginning where the nurse goes,
You killed him.
and Herbert West says,
No, I did not. I gave him life.
so, I mean, I thought, like Logan said earlier, that kind of was the foreshadowing of this movie.
Yeah, it brought you right in.
Right. My stinker, I'm going to go with Megan tied up and
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Hill, you know,
It served the
his
purpose.
head going and doing sexual assault on
Dude, it
her
was
body.
so gross.
Yeah.
And like you said, I was also like at the TV, like, no.
No.
Yeah, I was watching him watch it because I watched it before my father did, and I was just like, I was in the other room. I forget what I was doing, but I was like hearing his like reaction to it. And I'm like, yep. That's
the
yep.
He
I know.
sounded like Loomis. I was like, no.
No, Michael, no.
Jimmy Kid again.
Dr. Hill.
All right, Dan, what do you have?
You kind of touched on my hook earlier. Reanimated, lobotomized Dean Housley, squeezing the head of Dr. Hill like a grapefruit. then,
Yeah.
then he just whips that thing into the wall in the hallway, and it just, and then it just, my
Drips
favorite
down.
thing is just, it just runs down. Like, it's just like they took like a fucking washcloth and dipped it in blood, and they were like, here you go, throw that thing as hard as you can against the wall. And see how it like for effect. See how it
Yeah.
looks.
They said they used actual hamburger.
Really?
Yeah, the effects guy, like sculpted it because he wanted the same effect you talked about on the wall.
Yeah.
Well,
like-
they also did use cow meat for the head, like in an earlier scene.
The brain. They use
Yeah.
cow brains with that scene where they take it out of the guy.
So
Oh.
gross.
This isn't a hook, but like it's another one of my favorite scenes is when Dr. Hill is reanimated and he's decapitated and like his body has him like tucked into the trench coat and he's got like the plaster
yeah,
head
his
on top
face,
of him.
yep.
He's trying to like sneak through past the guard. That guard is
Worst guard.
I believe he was reading like a
He was
Hustler.
reading a nudie mag, and then as soon as Dr.
Boudoir, I think was the name.
Yeah, and then as
Boudoir.
soon as Dr. Hill like closes the door, he's like, "Well, time for my bathroom break." Like, are you going to go rub one out in the bathroom?
Yeah, I like that scene too, and his ear fell too. I think, right? Like
Yeah,
the plaster
yeah,
came
yeah.
down, and you're like, oh shit.
For line, I'm gonna Hill's head, West, Dr. West. Yes, doctor, it's Herbert West. What are you thinking? You. West taking notes. You. Hill's head, bastard.
I feel like if some accident was to befall Dan and we brought him back to life, that would probably be the first word out of his mouth.
Facts. And then, of course, my stinker is we've already touched on that too. Headless Hill, muff diving a shackled Megan. Gross.
I feel like that's gonna be all of our.
Dang, Bearclaw. What about you?
So my hook is it was Dr. Hill's death, like you say, this shovel scene. But you know what? For a little bit different, I'm gonna say Dr. Gruber's death, just because like that pounding, the eyes and coming out and everything like that. I mean, technically wasn't murdered, but they were trying to save his life. But things kind of went in the other direction, so that happens. So I'll go with that for my hook, and then my line is this perfectly showcases the amoral attitude of Herbert West, and it's when they're re-injecting the cat with the reanimator, and he goes,
Don't expect it to tango. It has a broken back.
and he shoots it into the cat, and the kitty comes back to life. And that's a little hard to watch. I love animals, so I didn't love to see that. Which I'm also going to turn that into my stinker. Like I don't want to see cruelty to animals in any way, shape, or form. But I mean, there's far more cruelty to humans in this movie. But
It was tough though.
and it was
seeing-
clearly a fake cat. Like it was a puppet when
you're
it was
right.
like.
It was tough though seeing that cat in that refrigerator.
I thought it was so funny though, because I was like, oh, we just go into his room and it's just like the first thing you look at is the refrigerator. It's just like sitting there. It's kind of like in My Buddy Valentine when the body's in the fridge. It's just like, oh, let's look over this.
Nothing to see here.
Yep,
Yeah.
shoving things in fridges. All right, Logan, how about you?
So originally I did have Dr. Gruber's death, but then when we were talking about this, I really like the Dean's death as well. Like when the corpse was killing him, and also the corpse's death is pretty awesome. Like with the buzzsaw right in, like
right through him.
It's so good. Like it's perfect. It's like it's the thing that sends Dan into shock, but it's the kind of thing that makes me go, "Oh my god!" Like that was perfect effect. Like it was just like it made it. It's kind of like the body horror I was expecting, but they did it to such a degree where I was like, "Oh my god, this is even shocking. This is far beyond what I thought they were gonna do."
Right.
And then for my line, I did have 2.
Okay.
Because I'm perfect like that. These lines are by far one of my favorite lines in any kind of horror movie besides My Bloody Valentine, but it is when Dr. West is basically making fun of Megan when she's basically getting sexually assaulted, and he goes, "You bubble-headed co-ed."
Well, I do love that line though, but it's directed at Dr. Hill. He goes, "I must say, Dr. Hill, I'm very disappointed in you. You steal the secret of life and death, and here you are, trysting with some bubble-headed co-ed," which Barbara Crampton is not. I have the deepest respect for Barbara Crampton.
She said that herself, where she was like, I think Megan is pretty strong. She's like, I'm not some bubble-headed co-ed, like on the interview. It's so good. The other one was in that kind of same scene where Dr. West goes,
You'll never get credit for my discovery. Who's going to believe a talking head? Get a job in a sideshow.
just like, I mean, that makes sense because it's like, he's going to steal it now? Like, you are basically, you're a deheaded corpse.
Right.
No one's going to believe you.
I probably want to, like, kill him.
Yeah, it's gonna be like Frankenstein.
Yeah, is anybody going to be taking the medicine from the disembodied head carrying, with his corpse carrying him? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to believe him.
I don't think I'm going to buy Robitussin from that guy.
And then for my stinker, I would say, so it's not really a stinker, but it's one that I don't really agree with, is when Dr. West wakes up and his basement, the basement is all ransacked and taken out. Dr. Hill is gone. And I was like, if Dr. Hill hates him, why wouldn't he have just killed him and ended that? Because he knows that Dr. West is going to go after him. But he's just like, oh, let me leave this guy here and let me go off to go sexually assault Megan. Like, that's not realistic. If
Well, he's not
He's
a
got
killer.
tunnel vision, man. He's
Yeah.
a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, he might not have been thinking clearly, with the decapitation and all.
Yeah. I think just any scene with Dr. Hill is just like, like, I don't like
Yeah,
it.
He's actor, he was creepy too. He brought
Yeah.
a serious creeper.
Yeah,
about it.
they needed a bigger villain.
Yeah.
to go
to
above
overshadow
Dr.
the
West.
clearly villainous Herbert West.
And speaking of like your Pet Cemetery reference, he kind of reminds me of the neighbor in Pet Cemetery too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has those same features
Something's
as
better
Herman
than-
Munster.
I really like that
those
guy.
sunken eyes kind of thing.
I like the neighbor better
Haunting.
than that guy. At least the
Yeah.
neighbor wasn't a creepo like that
Yeah.
guy.
Well,
Maybe
he
he
is kind
was.
of creepy, but not in that way.
No, he was good.
All right, well, we're on to our final rating.
They're gonna rate the movie. Well, will they rate the movie? The killer is great, the victim sucks, the survivor is in between. What was that?
Now, for me, on this one, I'm going to give this a killer. I really had a fun time with this movie. It really was like one of probably the most fun horror movies I've seen in quite some time. The body horror, the effects, thought the acting was great. This was kind of a zombie movie and a Frankenstein movie done in a different way. And I thought it was a really heart-pounding 120 minutes. I don't, or an hour and 20 minutes, I think it was. So it has very little downtime, which is awesome. It has a great ending of just pure chaos, which I loved. And it has some open-ended things too, which is cool too. We're not kind of spoon-fed everything, which is an awesome thing to have in a horror movie. How about you, Dan?
I also give this movie a killer. I don't think I have nearly as much of the passion that you guys have for this movie. I really like it. I just don't feel like there's a lot for me to talk about outside of like, this is great effects. I love the character. Like, I don't know. Like, I like it, but I'm not like passionate about it. I really enjoy everything that we've talked about. Like, I agree with 100%. My enthusiasm for it not nearly as high as everybody else's, I guess. I don't know, but I do, like, I enjoy the campiness. I like that it doesn't take itself too seriously. Yeah. The effects hold up a lot. Like I said earlier in the episode, like, I think it's a better version of Evil Dead. I mean, you get tentacles, intestines,
Gotta love those.
And I mean, Herbert West is just, again, I think is the biggest takeaway from this movie is the character Herbert West. Like, to me, that's the most I feel like you could talk about outside of just like appreciating the movie. Like, I feel like he's an interesting character and he provides a little more depth to this movie. Other than that, like, it's great.
All right, Bearclaw, what is this one? A stinker for you?
Yeah. Well, surprisingly, no, this is going to be a victim.
I mean,
no.
a victim.
No. This is all killer, no filler. I mean, what can I say that hasn't been said? I mean, I just think this movie takes new, different angles, takes risks that pay off. I think it is an iconic horror movie that is worth having in the killer stable. I think I'm excited and nervous to see the sequels. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe we could do them in a future episode.
Yeah, maybe this time next year we'll do the Bride of the Reanimator.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
That's the one I definitely want to check out.
Yeah.
All right, Logan.
There's obviously like great movies like this, but there's not a lot that really like make it shine like this one did. For me, it was very enjoyable. I just love it. I would watch it again. Like, that's kind of what I would say is my killer. If I wanted to watch a movie, then it's got to be good for a reason. And this movie is good. I would watch it again, like, over and over. It's just a movie that I would like to watch. Because other movies that I've rated as killer, I don't go back and watch. This one, I feel like, is different because I'm really, like, into this whole vibe that they set out to do. And I'm like, this feels like Dan said earlier, classic horror, and I love classic horror. We don't get too much of it. Yeah. So to see like this kind of movie getting the following that it does really makes me excited to see like more of these kind of movies, even though, we were talking about like remakes, maybe not. I think though this movie is a killer because it doesn't have a ceiling. Mm-hmm. It has its own like kind of room, and it kind of can breathe on its own without having to do more movies. But it's just such a perfect movie. He was in his bag when he made this movie. Like, it's a perfect balance in this kind of movie.
Well, now that we've given our final rating, we also asked some of our audience what they thought of Reanimator. So let's check our Instagram page, and that's at mouths.of.madness. And we have one comment here from Horror Babe Show, and she wrote, "The cat. X'd out eye emojis, peeking emoji. That's all I remember. Laugh out loud." We are all talking about the cat scene. I mean, that's definitely a memorable scene. So yeah, thank you, Horror Babe Show. Also, let's check our email. That's at thepaddedroom@outlook.com. And we have one here from Dr. H. West at mistonicuniversity.edu. Next time, try my serum I sent you for your projects. Ha 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 ha. Evil laugh.
Hey, Kevin, we got a package here. One of the lab assistants brought it to me. It appears to be leaking a little bit of green fluid. It tastes a little bit like I don't know, it's kind of glowing and it tastes a little citrusy, but like, I don't know, probably shouldn't be tasting things. But yeah, no, it's you should check this out.
Oh, well, okay. Well,
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that either. Well, we'll be back soon for another episode. Thank you for listening. Now, back to the padded room with you. Bearclaw, put that serum down.